What's up, everybody? Welcome to Shared Screens Media Club, which is like a book club without the books. I'm your host, Jordan Deeb. Joining me today is Alec Bobko.
Hello.
And Brett Jamerson.
It's Brett with a B.
Did I not say that?
No, I was making a. Alec gets it. Alec, you get it right.
Yes.
Gotcha.
I almost went with Brett with one T, but I don't know. But he got it either way. So 50%, NBA. That's like good shooting percentage. Yeah.
Lear and Jazz couldn't make it today because she's still drooling over that final scene of today's episode, which we are discussing. The second episode of Moon Knight, Put the Suit On. What did we think of the episode, just generally speaking? And then we could start kind of at the beginning.
Well, I actually kind of enjoyed it. How kind of the almost a mirror image to last week's episode, where Steven was, kind of always caught off guard and would always almost give in to Mark and the Egyptian god. The name slips my mind. But like whenever they say they would give in and let them take over, he would always pretty much immediately just do it. Whereas this week he was fighting them at almost every single turn. I thought that was a cool twist on that.
Yeah. I also like the way that the episode built off the bits and pieces of information we got last week. Whereas WandaVision kind of kept the curtain closed, and every time they maybe just a little bit opened it, you didn't necessarily get the answer to that the following week. It was kind of one big reveal. Whereas this one is it's more doing like a building blocks thing.
Yeah. Although
I wouldn't be
with WandaVision, they had 9 episodes. They had 3 more episodes.
Oh no, I'm not saying one's better than the other. I think it's just they're going about it in 2 different ways.
I'm just saying that I think the reason WandaVision could do that is because they had more time to use.
Yeah. And I think WandaVision's reveal is more of one giant reveal.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this one, it's okay, so we found out that there's this guy that named Mark that he thinks lives in his head. Mark would argue that Steven lives in his head. And there's that cell phone with this person, Lydia, and she thinks that person's Mark. And so we got kind of resolution on that stuff. And then I wouldn't be surprised if next week's episode really just tells us everything we need to know about Mark. Because we kind of got bits and pieces of that today about what happened in Egypt, and people think he's a mercenary. He has to shoot some guys. Yeah. What about you, Brett? How'd you like the episode?
I really liked it again. I think Oscar Isaac and Ethan Hawke are they're killing it right now. I think they're both doing a phenomenal job, especially with the characters they have to play. I loved what Alec mentioned, that the dynamic between Mark and Steven, how he was more resistant this episode, but also that we did get that kind of confirmation that Mark is a dominant personality, which from the comics that's been established, so that's not surprising. But because in this show they started with Steven, there were questions and stuff of what's this balance between all these different people. So I thought that was cool to get some information on that. I think the suit looks so cool, and then especially with the Mr. Knight suit that we got in this episode. I mean, that comic panel is and the cover is when I first saw when the show got announced, I was like, oh my gosh, this just looks so freaking cool. And I'm glad they were able to do it in this show. And then I love the little twist that they did for the suit and how we got it with it being Steven's version of the suit, and how he's still able to summon it because he is the Avatar, as well as Mark said. I think we're moving at a really good pace with the show, because we're a third of the way through, and now we're in Egypt. And you got to look at this. I always try to compare these shows to movies, and so if movies 2 hours, we're still within the first 20 to 30 minutes of establishing the whole premise. And I'm excited to see where we go. Like last week, I love the blending of real world mythology with the superhero stuff. So I can't wait and to see where we go next week.
One thing I thought was really interesting line of dialogue. I think it was Mark that dropped it, that he said there used to be walls between all different personalities. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why they couldn't really interact with each other. So that's kind of interesting that now we are getting those, like, Mark and Steven can interact with each other. So it's only a matter of time until, because they said walls, not just wall. So
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think just naturally from a storytelling perspective, I think it would get kind of annoying if for this whole show and then even future movie appearances and other crossovers if he's still battling with all these different personalities
yeah,
like that hinders the story. I think you saw it a little bit at the end of this episode where Mark was like kind of bringing up the walls and Steven I don't know. It hasn't gotten old yet, but the mirror reflection stuff is so cool
yeah,
every episode so far. Like with how they can convey the different personalities. But I just think I mean it makes sense. Totally makes sense. Of naturally, there's going to be some kind of understanding between Mark and Steven and maybe any other personality that pops up. Of like, hey, like we're all kind of in this together, and
mhm,
we because like yeah, this episode we got Mr. Knight, and so we could see like in future appearances of that version of Moon Knight, like where Steven just becomes more confident in himself in terms of like who he is and that part of his life. So yeah, I think it's awesome.
Yeah. No, I do think that there's definitely something with. I think there is still a bigger reveal as to how his identities all work together. That there's definitely another one there. I think there's definitely going to be some sort of a synergy between them at some point where they figure out how to all kind of coexist.
Yeah.
Right now, it does seem like they're each fighting for control.
Yeah.
Um, so one of the things that I found interesting this episode was that only he can see the jackals
yeah,
for whatever
Yeah.
reason.
I assume it's some sort of because he's the avatar of Khonshu
Yeah,
and
it must be
then
something like that. But I felt that that was interesting because now, if like what happened to his job, it doesn't look like any sort of defense or attack. It truly just looks like he was going around
there
destroying
was
shit.
there was like slight camera like glitches and stuff when the jackal was like bumping into the pillars and stuff. Um, it's like very minute. So like yeah, most people would even like they definitely wouldn't assume that's going on. They just yeah, because uh but it is interesting with that aspect of it with the jackal, but then also like you assume all the followers of Amit can see the jackal. Like as I'm guessing like once you get branded with that tattoo, like you're like
yeah.
in the club officially and so you can
See,
see all that stuff.
personally, I think it's just him. It's just Amit and Mark slash Steven because they have the artifacts slash they're the avatars. Because
Oh, okay.
Well,
even
it
is it Layla or
so
Lila?
Layla.
Layla,
It is Layla. Okay.
Yeah.
Because Layla's aware of all of this stuff, the myths, the story. The Scarab wants her to be the Avatar, and she still can't see it.
Hmm.
So, I mean,
right?
personally, I think it's just them two that could see it.
Yeah.
I it might be. I do think it might be the people with the tattoos, or maybe they can't see it, but they know what's going on, because when he was like summoning the jackal, you saw them all just like back away and like leave the room. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. This is kind of going ahead, but like the line how he said Amit's first avatar like had this staff. Like, how did he
mhm,
get it in terms of
yeah,
if that avatar betrayed Amit, did that avatar keep the staff or the Arthur Harrow character is so fascinating because uh like I said at the beginning, like Ethan Hawke was just chewing up that scene at the lunch table or whatever, and um I always love a villain that like believes their own BS and seeing him like earnestly explain like I don't know, like I feel like, maybe it's just an MCU thing, but like I don't know a lot of villains that would invite their I mean, he's a protagonist in his own story, but like invite the antagonist to like to eat. Cause like breaking bread, like eating is like a very like communal thing in
Yeah.
so many
mhm,
cultures. And like he was like
very
inviting him in and
symbolic.
like yeah, and explaining everything and like he really believes what he's doing.
Yeah.
I always like that in
So I was
a
gonna say, I
villain.
found it interesting that now Arthur has kind of figured out what's going on in this body, this singular
Mhm.
body, and
Yeah.
is treating Steven a lot differently than he's treating Mark, and is also aware that the Egyptian god is there the whole time. And I
Mhm.
personally, and I guess like this isn't some wild revelation. I guess that's what Avatar means, but it almost sounded like when he was talking about the god that it was not the character of Arthur Harrow saying what he was taught. It really did feel like his god was just in that body talking about this old friend or in brother that everyone's like, no, he throws a temper
Mhm.
tantrum like a 2-year-old. You can't let him get to you. Because that I think would be the relationship that the gods themselves have.
Mhm.
And I do think that there is some aspect of, again, it's I don't think this is a wild revelation because that's what the Avatar is, but when Arthur's talking about why he kills before something bad happens versus killing after, the way it comes off sounds like somebody who's buying into this bullshit that they're being told from this deity. But when he was specifically talking about the other god, it really did sound as though that was coming straight from the god and rather than the Avatar.
Or was it
No,
just him with
yeah.
his past experience? Because since
That
he said
too,
he
yeah, because he
was
also
the
used to
fist of
be,
vengeance.
yeah, and he also used to be that god's avatar before. I guess I
Yep.
don't know. He got promoted.
Uh, um, yeah, I mean, anytime this kind of topic comes up, it's always fascinating. I mean, I always think of like Minority Report when this kind of discussion comes up of like if you know someone's gonna do something bad, like what do you do? Like,
Well, that was the sorry, North Brett, but that was actually the conflict of Marvel's Civil War 2.
right.
Because the Civil War, the movie, was based off such an old comic line that to kind of do marketing,
Mhm.
they did a Civil War 2 in 2016, where at the center of the issue, and the first one was the Superhero Registration Act, was this inhuman character that could, just to summarize it, could basically see the future and could see somebody that would commit this crime. But part of the issue was that the person did not know the whole context of what caused that crime to happen, slash what the butterfly effect was of what
Mhm.
led to that. I mean, this is going to be the dumbest comparison I could make, but you know how like in That's So Raven, she'll every episode was like she gets the vision and she thinks it's going to go one way, but it actually turned out that she lined things up to make that exact thing happen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's kind of like that. And so you had the superheroes kind of deciding, should we use this Inhuman as, for lack of a better word, an informant and go after these people before anything has been done? And that's what caused a giant rift in the Marvel community.
Yeah, to cross what franchises under the Disney umbrella, I always think of Star Wars and the classic like choice versus destiny,
Mhm.
and how
Mhm.
Yoda always says like the motion is uh, always changing, and that you can't like because I think with storytelling in any creative medium, like because this kind of got brought up with Loki with the TVA of like if you know your destiny from like the character's perspective, but also as us as watchers, like with no agency, the stories can get um boring, or like you just like you lose hope in terms of what that character can do or where the story can go. And so that's why I mean Arthur Harrow and Amit are the villains in this show, so it's already clear that they don't have the right like mindset. um it's just always like a fascinating discussion of like choice versus destiny and what that means for everybody.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I did really like his hippie commune, though. He was like, "All
Dude,
the
like,
food's
Yeah.
free. We all speak 3 languages that we teach each other." I was like, "This place sounds nice."
Mm.
yeah, I wonder, like, I mean, what's the buy-in besides like selling your soul to that crocodile lion? Like,
I
you have to
think you
pay
also
rent.
have to
Getting you
pass
have
the
to,
test.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because like I mean, rent in London is probably pretty expensive, I'd imagine. So, like, man, free rent probably. Like that's a
Yeah, it's
you know
like you're
for
like, "That's a
food.
trade I'd make.
That's a
I'll
pretty
join
It's
a
an
good
cult
deal.
abandoned
when you're in."
neighborhood, so I mean, yeah.
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 Also, like
I can't guarantee I'd pass the test, though, that's my issue.
I feel like everybody at their core is a little bit like nasty. So I feel like I mean everyone's like nobody's perfect, right? So I feel
Yeah.
like you know I really want to know more about like what like when he judges people with Amit's staff, like what's the criteria for failing? You know what I mean? Like you
Mhm.
know if like
What puts it over the edge to
kind of like with the
be like,
TVA, like
you're dead.
even with the TVA, they were like, hey, if you like, you know, took a left instead of a right on that street that day, that was potentially what was it, Nexus event or
Yeah.
yeah, like that would create a branch in the timeline. So like if you steal like a pack of gum out of the gas station, like is that like are you Amit's like no go now? Like you know what I mean? Like I don't know, but um
What if you're, like, a
yeah,
hateful person, but you've never physically harmed anyone versus an
that's what
accepting
yeah.
person that secretly, beats his kids?
That's what Steven even said, like, you know, he wishes he could like strangle his boss or whatever, like countless times, but like he would
Oh, yeah,
never
that
act
too,
on
yeah,
it.
it's like, at what point is it
Mhm.
a thought crime, which is a whole debate just in morality and stuff anyway,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of was with the crux of the Army Hammer situation a few months ago.
Oh gosh. But like and going back to Arthur Harrow again, like he's like he does have that interesting angle of like he believes in what he's selling, but then at the end there, like with that I'm assuming it was a homeless person. He was like, "Hey, like, you want to come in, grab a bowl of soup?" And then he's like, he doesn't even let him weigh the staff. He just like kills. He just sucks the dude's life
Yeah,
force.
that one was
I thought he did
definitely
though.
not judgment. I don't know, 'cause
Which makes me think too, like, is it that like kind of like superhero thing where if he sucks people's life, like, does he become more youthful or more
I
powerful
don't think
or what? You
he
know what I mean?
I don't think he like sucks up their youth. I think they just die.
Yeah,
yeah.
They just turn to dust. That's their
because that
judgment is
lady,
death.
yeah, because that lady in the first episode like kind of looked a little mummified. Um,
Mhm.
so I don't know. I'm interested to see more how that like that side of the power works because it's fascinating. Because
'Cause I
that's the
mean,
thing with like
oh yeah.
villains is like they have power too. It's just like it's that classic like debate of like good versus evil, like who's more powerful, where you draw your power from, all that stuff. Like very
Yeah.
interesting.
What's interesting is that we, starting from episode 3, we don't really know where it's going from that because we kind of had a little. I don't know. Say we didn't really know last week either, but like here, it's like they're literally just dropped into Egypt at the end of the episode.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They don't have the Scarab, which is their compass. The MacGuffin of the series, I
That
guess.
was that was one thing of like, why did she bring the Scarab to the freaking commune headquarters?
Right.
Like what?
Yeah, because he doesn't need the scarab. No, I guess he needs the scarab for the suit, right?
I don't
Yeah,
think
and
so.
then no, he
The
doesn't need it
Scarab
for the
is just the
suit.
compass for Amit's tomb.
Which okay, I have a question. So uh the Arthur Harrow and the Amit followers need the Scarab to find where Amit is buried or
Yep.
trapped
The
or
tomb.
whatever.
The tomb.
Yeah.
Yep.
So why did Mark Spector have it and
To stop him from getting it, from releasing Amit, basically.
why didn't they destroy it then? Because I assumed, and they kind of dropped hints at like the line of Mark of what they were doing with it in terms of Khonshu. Like were they trying to track him down, track Amit down to like put them away for good, or like? But why didn't
Probably.
they do that already? Like
Yeah.
we
I,
still
I
don't know why Steven was in London as like a cover. You know what I mean?
yeah.
He was still trying to do something there.
Those are the answers I hope we get next week because the only hint they gave us was when we thought he was being arrested. But really, they were people from the commune, and they looked his identity up, and they were
Bro, they
like,
did.
"Oh, you were a mercenary. You killed like X amount of people in Egypt. You shot him right in the back of the head." And Mark tells Steven, "Is like that's not the full story." And
Yeah.
so I think we're going to kind of get that backstory and establish. I think that's really going to help establish what happened, and I think that's really going to project also the end as well as the backstory.
Yeah, and I was reading today, there's like comics where they could draw parallels from that whole mercenary angle with the archaeologists and stuff, which we're going there anyway, so I'm assuming we're gonna get some sort of retelling of that. Dude, Steven, these shady ass people are knocking on your door. Don't let them in. Don't go like what like bless you, Steven, man. I love you, but you gotta he's a smart guy. You just gotta like really think about it. Like
Yeah.
ah
I also found it interesting that Mark's wife isn't aware that Mark has other personalities. So I
Mhm.
wonder if that's also going to be part of the revelation, if this is a new thing that happened to him.
yeah, I the way it looks like it's going with this episode or with this show, is that I mean, it doesn't seem like it was a result of him receiving the Khonshu, like like him being in that role of the Avatar, like because as far as we know, he didn't have these different personalities before Mark Spector.
It might have developed from some sort of trauma that happened on the same mission in which the god made him his
Mm.
avatar.
Yeah, because I would find it hard to be a mercenary slash be married and like every other day, like 51st dates, like have to like play like a 30-minute videotape of like explaining who you are, why you're there, what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, like I feel like it has to be this kind of thing because when Layla called in the first episode, she was like, I haven't heard from you in months. And I feel like if Steven was more prevalent the way he was at that point in time, like that would have been a more regular occurrence.
Well, yeah, because it also sounds like from what we got last episode, Mark was aware of Steven. Steven's never been aware of Mark until now.
Hmm.
And so I think Mark knows how to balance the two lives thing, and he's really good at keeping Steven in the dark for his own reason.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and the walls are coming down now between the personalities, and then Mark had that line of like, whoever's in control can keep that control even longer or easier. Uh,
Mhm.
so that's going to be fascinating too as we go forward. Of um, like it's kind of been established like when Steven goes to sleep, like Mark can take over easier, but that might not be the
Yeah.
case anymore now that things have changed a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, um, I mean, like I think we'll see Steven obviously more and more as we go on, and him being in control still for sure. But it'll just be interesting to see where they develop that.
Well,
Yeah.
the one thing that is a little interesting is, I mean, because at the end of the episode, when Mark is taken back over and he sees Steven's reflection in the glass
Hmm.
in that mirror,
Mhm.
and he like stomps it out, he doesn't see Steven when he's like done stomping it out.
Yeah, that was so sad seeing Steven like helpless in the reflection.
Yeah.
That's why this show is so fascinating. Like with this
Oh
kind of
yeah,
character, it's just phenomenal acting.
just good suspense kind of stuff.
Yeah. We really get to see Oscar Isaac just kind of fighting with himself, which like isn't easy.
Yeah,
Not at all.
Yeah.
Lots of green screen.
he even called himself handsome, which I feel like that's like a layup
Yeah,
for
he's like,
Oscar
"Oh, you're
Isaac.
so much more handsome than me." It's like, You're the same person."
But
He just stands up straight."
I was just
I
gonna say it's like
I
Steven just like
Yeah.
I think there's an argument to like being confident and like
Confidence and
yeah,
yeah.
because
oh yeah.
like you could be a good looking person, but like self doubt and everything, and then that could reflect in how you act, which makes you less attractive and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely.
I mean, even you see that in the with the Mr. Knight suit. He gets that, and then he gets the one
Dude,
punch in, and that just shoots his confidence way up. And
that suit
yeah,
looks so dope, man.
it does.
I want to see it again. Like
The
that's why
poster
like,
with
with the
it's dope.
yeah, like if you look at that comic panel too, like
Mhm.
it's just I don't want to say I don't know if it's iconic because he's not like a huge popular character yet, but it looks so cool. And this is a tangent, but like man, I can't remember what run it was, but with the Moon Knight comics, they would draw him in negative space. So like the panel would all be white, and then they would draw like all the background stuff, and then like the Moon Knight would just be like the blank white paper in each panel, and so like it
That's
looks
cool.
different than them actually drawing that white. And with that suit, like I want to see more Steven Moon Knight too. Like that was very
You want
cool.
to see more of Mr. Knight, I guess.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's gonna be so many cosplays of Mr. Knight now.
Because that's
Oh
definitely the
yeah.
easier one to make.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Just get
Yeah.
a nice white jacket.
You basically just get a white 3-piece suit and then a ski mask.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any other like favorite parts of the episode or anything?
Honestly,
Oh, go
for me,
ahead.
I personally wouldn't say there's much favorite. It was just kind of like I just enjoyed it all just because like we talked about the good suspense and just trying to figure things out and figure out what's happening. So I wouldn't say I
Yeah.
necessarily had a favorite part to it, but I just enjoyed it
Yeah.
all.
What
Yeah,
about you, Brett?
I loved Oscar Isaac and Ethan Hawke. Again, they were great. I'm glad that we're in England or Egypt now. Like, I always love a good globetrotting story. Mr. Knight was awesome. The chase sequence with Moon Knight was cool. I like Feige was quoted as saying like this show gets brutal or is brutal. I don't think we've really seen that yet. Like I want to see Moon Knight like go off, like
Just
go,
really
go
beat some people.
yeah, like just like I need to see some brutal action. Hopefully soon because yeah, this character obviously originally was a Batman like kind of copycat, and so
I was about to
uh
say, do you want one episode directed by Matt Reeves?
that would be awesome because I saw the Batman again last weekend, and yeah, it holds up. It's really great, and yeah, I just need to see him like just punch some mummy or something like 100 times, like yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we'll be getting
because
that in
well
the next
we
week
got
or
little
two.
doses, yeah, we got little doses, uh, but yeah, I want to see more
Yeah.
action.
How did you guys feel about the freeze frame that happened during the storage locker scene? Because I've seen some dislike for it on Twitter, and I was like, "Oh, that was an interesting choice," and then I just kind of went right past it. Like I didn't think too strongly either way.
I personally thought it was just like because I was watching it at work, so I just assumed that it was just some sort of like network lag or something. I didn't think
Mm,
anything of it.
No,
Yeah, for
which I
me,
feel like a lot of people would have thought, but the whole like background changes as well. Like it goes and like highlights itself.
yeah, I thought it was just like a weird hitch in like the streaming
Right
of
or
it,
something. Yeah.
but it was that weird gray area of like it was longer than like a normal cut, but then it wasn't like too long, so like it happened. I was like,
Mhm.
what? But then like just things kept going and going, and so I was like, oh, like it wasn't like sometimes like whenever you're streaming something and it does hitch and like a scene will cut or transition and like immediately that next scene is like here's like super important information. You're like, whoa, I gotta like make sure I'm like getting that
How
transition
would I
so I
get
can
from A
like
to B? Yeah.
Yep.
fully guide myself in this story. But that didn't really happen in this, so I never thought too much of it, and it didn't happen at all. Like I just thought, yeah, interesting editing choice.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
kind of was my thoughts on it.
Yeah.
So I actually have one more thing before we go, which is I have translated lyrics of the song that played at the end of the episode, which is a pretty catchy song. Stood out to me because it is an Arabic song, not one that I'm familiar with. I know the traditional ones. This is borderline rap.
Hmm.
Um, I'm just gonna read some of the lines that like
Mhm.
stand out that I thought were interesting, or because I honestly could also look at this and be like, oh, they just use this because it's relevant and it's Egyptian. It's not necessarily has anything to do with the show. But the first couple lines is, "I don't see you. You're some kids living on scratch. Everyone knows you're little. Everyone knows I'm bold. And then a few lines later, it's, "I stand like a lion between anyone. In the middle of my war, I shoot rockets." At one point, he goes, "Dad, we have arrived like a gang," which I'll tell you that, like, culturally, what he's saying is, like, "Made my entire family arrived as a gang." Then there's just one line that's the word silence, 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 silence. which I think that might be the one that's like has something to do with the show. Um,
Yeah,
I looked at the little and bold of like Mark and Steven. Like Steven's like the little kind of like beta personality, and Mark is like the bold, like
yeah,
confident alpha personality. Um, which going to when Layla visited Steven's apartment, I picked this up in a Reddit thread of the poem that they were speaking back to each other in French was taught like basically an analogy or allegory or whatever of like their relationship of Mark wanting to keep her away to like stave her off from danger and potentially being like the next avatar for uh
mhm.
being the next Moon Knight, and then also uh this has to be intentional, but Layla's like favorite poet was the one that Steven was really into. And so that
yeah.
has to be some sort of like subconscious bleeding between the two
Yeah, you
different
just reminded me of
personalities.
that, where it's like there were aspects of Steven that loosely related to Layla that he hadn't
Yeah.
realized or didn't know.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Because it also sounds like she knew a bit about hieroglyphics.
Yeah.
A
And
tiny bit, yeah.
Yeah.
again, just a fascinating way of like having these multiple characters kind of bounce off each other in like a totally unique way that
Yeah.
they've never done in the MCU before.
It's almost like none of them are ever completely gone.
Mhm.
Just people, you just don't necessarily remember the same stuff, but some of that stuff is in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
then, like you were saying, that line was the silence, 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 and that could relate to Amit's like grand plan of like basically like because like there's Arthur Harrow is talking about like when they release Amit, he's gonna put judgment over the entire world, and so they said
Yeah.
it's gonna be like heaven and all that. So basically, like, so I think that could be possibly relating to that.
Trying to see what else they have. The last line is victory doesn't require being lazy, which does sound like something a grind per Sigma male person has in their like Instagram bio next to entrepreneur spelled wrong. But in the cases of this,
Oh my gosh. This is totally random, but there's this like fake hustle account that I followed on Instagram like a few weeks ago. And it's just like fake hustle stuff that like cracks me up because when you see the real hustle stuff and it actually like kind of
it's the same shit.
you
They're
can't
very
tell
easy to
the
make fun of.
difference.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, dude, that's amazing.
Uh, well, hopefully there's no more Sigma male stuff next week, but we'll see you then regardless. Till next time, bye.